Earlier this week, CBN's Heather Sells spoke with Dr. Ryan Anderson at the Heritage Foundation about President Biden's transgender agenda.
LGBTQ advocates say that Joe Biden will be the most pro-LGBTQ president ever. He is known in particular for his support for the transgender movement, and he has promised that the Equality Act will be his top legislative priority. Joining us now with more is Dr. Ryan Anderson, a senior fellow at the Heritage Foundation. Dr. Anderson, thanks for joining us.
Sure thing. Happy to be with you.
So you have written a book, of course, on the transgender movement when Harry became Sally, and you have concerns about this transgender movement, its impact on children and on religious liberty. When it comes to religious liberty, how might the new Biden administration's agenda affect it?
So the first thing to say there is that anyone who believes the truth, that we're created male and female, and that male and female are created for each other, could now find themselves on the wrong side of the federal government. So that's just the first way, because this is going to be, if the government's imposing a false ideology, anyone who's going to believe the truth is going to be potentially at risk. But even more important to my mind are the children struggling with gender dysphoria, who the federal government is now going to say that their best solution is to take puberty-blocking drugs, cross-sex hormones, and then one day possibly even have surgery. Before we even get to the religious liberty violations, we should realize that these are harms precisely on a young person's body, a young person's sense of self, and we should be resisting those harms.
How do you see that playing out with respect to children? Obviously, the president can only suggest legislation. How might that new Biden White House affect children and their medical care?
Sure. So it's not just that they can suggest legislation, which is certainly true, but they also have the broad discretion of the federal agencies and of executive action. So, who's running the Department of Health and Human Services? Who's the head of the Department of Justice? Those could impact all sorts of executive branch actions where they declare that it's now, quote, discrimination on the basis of sex, where sex is now understood as gender identity. To not transition someone, to not give someone puberty-blocking drugs. And otherwise, they could say that good medicine now runs afoul of federal law. And that's going to have huge impacts on children and the therapy that they are allowed to receive and the therapy that they must receive, including possibly government mandating things like puberty-blocking drugs and cross-sex hormones for minors struggling with gender dysphoria.
Wow. How also might this impact the medical profession, doctors who are questioning or disagree with some new form of transgender medicine?
One of the things that we saw on the very last days of the Obama administration was that they codified a federal rule saying that it would be discrimination under healthcare law if a doctor, for example, would perform a mastectomy or a hysterectomy in the case of cancer, but wouldn't perform those same procedures for transition purposes. And we've now seen a Catholic hospital has been sued for not performing a hysterectomy for a patient who wanted the transition. So when it comes to medical professionals, when it comes to healthcare institutions, the question here will be, will the federal government return to the Obama policies of saying that doctors have now duties to perform certain procedures, even when it violates their best medical judgments, when it violates their conscience, when it violates their religious liberty.
All right. Ryan Anderson with the Heritage Foundation. Thank you so much.
Thank you.